Hello. There we go. I think the microphone's working now. Let's see what happened. Hello. Can you guys hear me now? Can you hear me now, guys? Alright, cool. Sorry for that. My microphone was disconnected. It was my mistake. Alright, guys. Welcome again. Welcome to the channel. Sorry for that little technical difficulty there. How are you guys? How was your week? My week was a little bit chaotic. It was good, but you know, I think the audio is a little bit low. Can make it better. Again, a little bit higher maybe. Low. It's been a freaking mess around here. Alright, I think that works. Don't want to make it too high. Sorry for the difficulties. I've been dealing with a lot of stuff. Yeah, my microphone, it's a little bit low over here. I think it's cool. You guys hear me okay? I don't want to be so high either. Hello? Seems alright. Seems alrighty. Let me know if it's too low. Hey, there's a lot of people here. What's up? Santi, Jerome, Matty Boy, hey, Node Nest, Jerome again, Hamid, who else is here? Will Mendez, hey Will, Friday Toothful, hey everyone, hello everyone. Somebody is asking about exporting OBJs. That's super simple. We could do that. In the meantime, people can. Oh, all right. I wasn't streaming that, right? Oh man, I just made a huge mistake. Let me open Houdini so I don't have to open it again. Okay. Phew, that was close. So glad I was not streaming that. Okay, so let me switch now to my desktop. Fit my window correctly. Oh man, I was so glad I wasn't streaming that. Could get in trouble. Alright, so I could help you with the exporting. So if you have any geometry like this guy here, a lot of people want to export stuff from here because they're used to exporting in the file menu in other applications, but in Houdini you don't do that. I still feel the microphone's a little bit low. Let's see, how's that? Might not be. Oh, the freaking gain is off. Let me turn it on. I'm a mess today, sorry guys. Let's put it up to 2. And I think it's gonna be up to 3 maybe. Close. Yeah, good enough. Okay, so again, people always wanna import and export stuff in Houdini from these menus, but as you can see, these menus are a little bit lacking, and people think that Houdini can't export or import stuff. But actually in Houdini you do it differently. You can actually just right click on a node and save it here. Not actually here, sorry. You go inside in the geometry level and just save geometry here. And then you just type your name, whatever here you want to save it, like Roberto.obj, and that will save it as an OBJ file. If you just want to export one single file. If you want to export a sequence of files. You just wrap output driver, and this you put the name here they want to export and the frame range you want to export. And let's say again Roberto, then put $F4 for frames, for different frame numbers, and OBJ if that's what you need. So that's how you export geometry. If you have a bunch of geometry here, you can just right click on the last node and save geometry, and then you just export that. AA, no, it was not something from Jumanji. It was something else. I according to the production, I can say I've been working on Jumanji, so that's not a. But yeah, if I showed something, that would be an issue. All right, so Friday wants to install Linux on a Mac. You can totally do it. You can totally install it. All right. So we're gonna talk a little bit about Linux today, because let me tell you something. So I've been, you know, guys, I use Linux, right? And a lot of people have asked me about Linux, and I receive so much questions about that, emails and messages and stuff about Linux, because, well, I've been using it for a while. Let's see exactly how much, because I don't really know, but I remember that my first version of Linux was Red Hat 7. Red Hat 7. Specifically 7.1, I think it was. Let's see when this was released. Release notes. Make this bigger because I can't see it. Let's see when this was released. There should be a freaking date here somewhere. There's no date. Let's see. Was it Red Hat 7.1? 7.1 seems really recent. Okay, no. Red Hat 7.1 initial release 1995. Wow, is that, no, that's not correct. I don't think that's right. I don't think that's right. Let's see. Oh, here's the whole history of versions and stuff. Alright, 7.1 was 2001. So that means it's been like 16 years. 16 years using Linux. Alright, that's a lot of time. But it does seem really recent. 7.1 was... Fedora didn't even exist back then, I think. I might be getting this wrong, but yeah, 2001 seems about right. So yeah, already Friday Tool is asking if there's different versions of Linux, and yes, there is different versions of distributions. But let's talk about Linux, and let's see what Wikipedia says about Fedora. Fedora was launched. Which was this initial release 2003? Yeah, Fedora wasn't even around when I started using Linux. So Linux, let's talk about it. Let's talk about Linux. I can find an article on Linux, the actual Linux thingy. Linux. Okay, so there it is, Linux. So this was released 1991, 25 years ago. Alright, guess I've been using it more than half of its life, which is cool. Alright, so Linux is basically the core of Linux, right? Alright, so Linux is basically like the main system, the operating system is Linux. So the kernel that runs on the main operating system, that's Linux, right? So that's basically what manages RAM, what manages the drivers. So in the kernel, there's a lot of drivers, support for a lot of software and stuff. But it's basically, let's say, the core, the very, very core of the operating system. That's what Linux is. And from there, it's not the graphical part of it, right? So let's say like in Windows, the operating system has some windows on top of it that you can manage your operating system and your files and all that stuff. So it's basically something that it's what it makes everything work, right? That's what it's Linux. And then on top of that, there's distributions, okay? Distributions are sets of software and graphical interfaces built on top of Linux. Okay, so there's a bunch of them. There's a bunch of distributions. You guys are talking in the chat about CentOS, which is it's one that it's recommended, but it's alright. It works. But it might not be the best for everyone, because CentOS, although it's used for some applications like Node.js saying that it's used for Flame, yes, but it's not something that you want to use for a desktop use, I guess, for everyday use, because it is very specialized. So a Flame machine is not meant to be used for something else. It's just meant to use Flame, and you don't have to even move it or touch it, or it's like a sacred thing, like you don't touch it. So CentOS is an option, but it's not the like the distribution for everyone. So we're clear that Linux is the core of the operating system, and then on top of it, people build these graphical user interfaces, which are desktops and applications, and then people took those desktops and applications and make distributions with them, also with the kernel. All right. So that's what Linux on top of it is. So there's a bunch of this distributions. There's a really popular site which is called Distrowatch, which lists some of the most popular distros. But again, it's not. Again, I shouldn't be like. You shouldn't be like guiding yourself with this list. Like Mint is on top of it, but all of these ones are really popular. Like I use Fedora, and Fedora is number 7. And oh my god, I'm not using the latest one or the best one, but everything has its different uses. All right. So, all right. Let's see what questions are there in the chat. Versions specifically for Windows, for Houdini. Houdini works with a bunch of. Let me do this off side because might be sensitive data here. Side effects. At side effects, there is here. So here in the support, there's a system requirements, and there's a Linux section here. You can see this is the ones that Houdini or side effects recommends, but it works in these are versions are kind of a little bit old. So Ubuntu is already in version 17. Debian is already in version 9. RHEL it's already in version 7, I think. Fedora is already in version 26. OpenSUSE jumped some versions, and there they have now version 43 or something like that. Let me close the door. Alright, so I just closed the door, so that's not. CentOS is already in version 7.4. Mint is already in version 18.2. So yeah, this is the ones that Houdini might be tested on, but it works in a bunch of versions of Linux, and I've tested a bunch of them. So there you go. Are there speed gains in rendering and other parts of the pipeline in Linux compared to Windows? Yes, they are speed gains, and they are better RAM management, better hardware management compared to Windows. The hardware, like the same hardware in Windows works better in Linux. Even the simplest things. Most of the time, there is a speed gain in some stuff. All right. How I pick my version of Linux? Well, I've been testing versions of Linux since forever. I've used all of this and more. So I just picked the one that works for me for every case that I use my computer on. If I only was using Flame, let's say I'm only gonna use Flame, I will stick with CentOS. But I don't do that. I use I record music, I play music, I record these things. Is my audio picking? Let me know if my audio is picking. Let me just reduce the filter here. Alright, so I record. I need cameras to work. I need USB microphones to work. I need Wacom tablets to work. So there's a bunch of things that I do. I actually do everything I do in this computer. So it's not. I can't have one distribution that just does one thing. So I need more. So that's why I chose, after testing a bunch of distributions, I chose Fedora. So so what's the difference? Let's ban this guy. Alright. So the difference, what's the difference between the Autodesk CentOS release? Autodesk doesn't release a CentOS version. They have a modified version of Red Hat. And that's what they distribute with their computers that they build specifically. Now, more recently, you can install Flame in a CentOS computer that you can set up yourself. But before, they had their own specific Red Hat version. And believe me, I've done this by hand. I've installed the system, set up Framestore, Stone drives, and all that stuff, Flame, whatever. I've done it. I've been there, so I know. I kind of know what I'm talking about, kinda. So it's different. It's different version because they modify it. They have a specific kernel that you can't update. They have specific applications that you can't remove because they modified that version specifically to use Flame. So that's why they released that version specifically to use Flame. So alright. Installing drivers in CentOS is complicated, but it's possible. Well, there's very little drivers you need in Linux. That's a big difference between Linux and Windows, let's say. Even Mac doesn't require that much drivers. Like I didn't require any drivers for this microphone or that camera or my audio interface or my Wacom tablet or my wireless keyboard or my mouse. I didn't require any drivers at all for that. And if I go to Windows, I need to download the Logitech drivers for my keyboard, for my mouse, for my Wacom tablet, for my USB microphone, for my USB interface, for my camera. So I didn't install any of that in Linux. Why? Well, that's all just supported out of the box in Linux. Most of the time it's just, even most printers, sometimes you just plug the printer and it freaking works. So that's a big difference between Windows and Linux. Most stuff, or most of the everyday use, like if you have a USB keyboard or a USB microphone, might not even require any setup. So yeah, it's pretty cool. So AA is asking, is it better to render on Linux? And are there any comparison between Windows and Linux? Well, it is better to render on Linux because Linux is a more well, Linux is built for hard work. You can see all the internet is built on top of Linux because those machines are never needing to be reset. They are on for years and years and years, and they don't have to be reset. They don't have to be whatever. Even if you update stuff, most of that stuff, it's just okay, it's updated, just restart the application and I'm working. So yeah, rendering on Linux is the best option. Most of the studios, which is what we are concerned here, most of the studios that had render farms, the render farms are on Linux. I say most because not everyone. Some people like Windows and they do Windows, but most of the big ones, most of the ones that I know or that I work with, they use Linux because again, it's hard. It's for hard-working things, and just ask Google or any other big company that depends their job and their money on servers, and they're gonna say, yeah, we use Linux because it's stable. It's always there. It's always working. So yes, I have a story, and that's how I actually started totally switching to how I totally switched to Linux. I'm gonna tell this story again. I had this project that I couldn't render. I was using Maya at the time, and of course I had Linux installed on that machine, and I couldn't render the project. Maya was crashing. I spent like 1 week trying to render the thing, optimizing the geometry, the shaders. I tried different renderers. Nothing worked. Like, it was just crashing and crashing and crashing and crashing. So after a week, I was there the next Monday, and I was like, I'm not I don't know what I'm gonna do. I was like, I don't know, what am I gonna do? I need to render this project, and I don't sorry, I need to render this project, and I can't render. I'm not sure what to do. What can I do? I was just like, I don't know. So that day I said, well, I have a Linux install. Let me do something, sorry. So I said, I have Linux installed on this machine. I could try testing on Linux. Let's see what happens. So I boot up to Linux, same machine, same everything. I install Maya and whatever, and at that time I was using LearnDay, I guess was the thing. And I rendered the project, and the project rendered like nothing. Like, it was just like butter. And I was like, oh my god, I just spent a whole week of my life trying to render this thing, and I was just like out of options. I was like, I can't. And in Linux it rendered like nothing. Same machine, same project, same texture, same everything, and it just worked. And in that moment I was like, yeah, I'm gonna switch to Linux full time, and that's what I did. So yeah, any hard thing or hard working stuff, it's Linux. Should be Linux. Hey Michael, what's up, Michael? Sorry man, I was just ranting or whatever. Is there better drivers for Linux? Are you talking, Adrian? The drivers are the same. The same NVIDIA drivers work in Linux, and the same NVIDIA AMD drivers work in. Although I can't talk about AMD because I don't have any AMD cards. Audio through HMD, yeah, sure, man. Let me show you my audio volume app. So this is my audio app here, and I have a bunch of cards in this machine, but you can see I have some HMD outputs. There are for my graphics cards, but yeah, you can totally use them. You can see there's one HMD card here, one HMD card here, and I'm actually going to install this guy. Let me show you this. Let me show you the big cam. I'm gonna install this guy, which I'm gonna output HDMI sorry, I'm saying that wrong. HDMI audio from here to use with Resolve in Linux. So HDMI audio works, yeah, sure. No, nothing to set up, no drivers, whatever, it just works. I don't have a Intensity Pro card, the Blackmagic Intensity card. I don't have that. This is the only card I have for Blackmagic, and that's what I'm gonna use for audio on Resolve. So let's see if there's any question. Hey Grant, what's up, man? No worries about being late. I'm glad you're here. So Michael said in his tests, Linux renders 20% faster in CPU. And yeah, like Nodeness is saying, Linux is free. It's free. And the code is out there as well. You can just do whatever you want. So I'm gonna tell you what I'm using. I've already been telling you, but I use Fedora. Oh, Fedora. What's the Fedora What's the Fedora page? Oh, get Fedora.org. Okay. So I use Fedora, and Fedora it's basically CentOS, but it's newer. It has more recent versions, more stuff, and that's why I'm using Fedora, because I need the stuff that works in CentOS. I need it to work in Fedora, and it works, and everything new works. So that's why I'm using Fedora. You can get Fedora there's a few versions. The workstation is it's meant to be used in a workstation, or in a laptop. You can use, actually, Linux for older hardware, it makes your computer feel like new. Like if you have a laptop that you have Windows on, and you say, well, I have Windows 7 or 8 on this, and I don't know, it doesn't work well. It just it's lagging or whatever. If you install Linux on that, it will kind of feel like when the laptop was new. It was like, why everything works better. It's just in laptops it makes them work like really, really amazing. So there's some other Fedora options. This is what I was talking about. You can see there's some other flavors, they call it. The KDE version is what I use, and KDE is just the set of applications and stuff, like this window manager and the terminal, which we're gonna see in a second. You can see all these apps are part of KDE. So the terminal, the browser, I'm sorry, and a few other applications. That's what the distribution brings. So other like this guy is the XFCE desktop, which has another kind of browser. It's meant maybe for lighter, let's say lower end computers like a laptop. Cinnamon is another version of a desktop. There's just different desktop with different applications, but in the core of the system, it's still Linux and it's still Fedora. It's just something on top, which is the graphical interface. All right. So I'm using KDE, and KDE I like it because of this guy, the browser. You can just press F4 and you have a terminal here. You can rename a bunch of files here just by selecting files and saying just renaming files. You just rename it really quickly, and that's stuff that I use a lot. And you have tabs here for different folders and stuff. There's a bunch of stuff I like, but that's mainly the things that are really useful for me to have here in this thing. And also it's pretty free. I mean, pretty fast, moves really quickly, and it looks beautiful. Looks pretty nice. So you can customize it however you want. All right, so let's see if there's any questions. I'm gonna start talking about using applications and stuff. Any machine can use Linux. Any machine, even Macs can use Linux. Any machine can use Linux. If you can install it in an SSD, it's better. Again, BVX Subarna. Like I said, I use Fedora because Fedora, it's a more modern take on CentOS. Companies use Red Hat or CentOS because they can buy support. That's why they use it. Specifically Red Hat. If you buy Red Hat, you are buying basically support from them. So that's why most studios use Red Hat. That's exactly the reason why. And Fedora can do everything CentOS does, but it has a more modern kernel and supports other applications that I use in my everyday life, like editing video and playing games and all that stuff. Installing more recent NVIDIA drivers and stuff like that. Yes, and I just recently switched from CentOS. I still have my CentOS drive here just in case I need to go back to it, whatever. AA GPU render like Redshift will benefit from Linux. Yes, actually, Redshift for a long while they recommended Linux because it was rendering way faster than Windows. So yeah, their words, not mine. Graphic cards and drivers. There's drivers for Linux as well, so there's no issues with that. And even most of the Linux distribution, they have a way to installing the NVIDIA driver directly. Like they have a driver management, extra drivers they call it or something like that. You open that and it detects your graphics card, be it NVIDIA or AMD, and they tell you here's the driver. You click on it, you install it, restart, and you have the driver. You don't even have to go to the NVIDIA site. But yeah, I can show you that there are drivers like my newest card is the 1080 Ti. You can see Linux is here, even Solaris and FreeBSD, which are other operating systems. But you can see there's the Linux drivers, and they are mostly on par with Windows. You can see this is for what, 2 days ago, 5 days ago, yesterday actually. So this was yesterday released. Yeah. So yeah, drivers are up to date and are available. All right. So let's talk a little bit about Linux. Yes, you can use Resolve and Fusion on Fedora. Yes, you can. Yes, I have tried Ubuntu Studio, but in my setup, any of the distributions any of the Ubuntu distributions don't work for me. The sleeping and wake up for the computer it's an issue for me. Might be my setup, might be something specific that I have with my graphics cards or whatever. But yeah, I can't use any Ubuntu distribution. And I tested, like this past day, I tested all of them. Tested like 10 of them. So, all right. So let's talk more about the basics of Linux. It's the same. You have a menu to open applications like Windows, like Mac or whatever. All right. You have a file manager or Windows Explorer, whatever. This is called Dolphin. It's the same thing. My lamp just went off. This is the ghost that lives here. Turns off my lamp. All right, so it's basically the same. Oh man. So there's not much change in the UI experience. You can browse drivers. You can you can browse folders and whatever. You have stuff. So, but I think that some of the basic stuff in Linux is commands. Come on. Some of the commands I want to show you guys are actually useful in not just that lamp doesn't want to work. This is the last time. It's the last time I turned you on. All right. So in Houdini you have these. I'm gonna explain it like Houdini because let's show the text port. And that director is weird. That's weird that it says director there. Weird. I'm not sure why, but let's do that and let's show tree view here. All right, so in Linux everything is a folder. So just like Houdini here, you can see everything is a folder. Like the OBJ context is a folder that has another object inside of it, and then has another object inside of it, and then this object has some other objects inside of it. There's some shaders inside another folder, etc. Like the way that Houdini works is the same thing that Linux works. So Linux is just based on like this. Linux is just based on folders. Like you can see if I go to media, there's no like C drive or whatever. In media you can see these are all my drives here. You can see this is one of my drives, and if I go back, this is another one of my drives. You can see everything in Linux is just a folder, and that's something really different from Windows or Mac. Mac is the same. Mac basically on beneath the surface is basically Linux. It's not exactly Linux, but it's based on the same idea. So you can use this stuff like in Houdini. You have the cd command. This text port is weird. Why is this? I don't know. It's weird. It's been so long since I used the text port that I'm missing today. So whenever you change folders here in Houdini, it's the same thing you can do in Linux. And in Linux, we use the terminal a lot for doing things. Like if you want to create let me make the font bigger, right? So I can type stuff here, like I can list things, and I don't want to be in the I gotta be careful here. Sorry guys, let me just delete something here. Okay, I'm gonna delete that. Okay, can create it later, whatever. Right, so if I type ls, basically it's listing folders. You can see this is what is in my home folder. If I want to change a directory, you say cd, so change directory. Type the name documents, and then you start typing and you press tab, and it generally just completes the word. And then I'm inside documents here, right? So I can ls and then list what is inside there. cd and dot is going back. So just a few commands. If I want to create a directory, mkdir creates a directory. Just make directory and then type the name, my folder, and then just created the folder. If I press ls again, you can see my folder is here. So this is really important to understand if you're more of a technical artist, and it helps you do optimize stuff, create automate things, creating folders, moving things around, and all that stuff. So it's pretty important to know at least the basics commands. So pwd shows you the current folder. I don't remember parent working directories. No, current directory, something like that. Work directory is what this means, but yeah. So basic commands: cd to change to another folder, mkdir to make a directory, ls to list stuff. If you know this basic stuff, it will help you a lot to get a lot of stuff out of a Linux distribution. In Fedora, you use DNF to install stuff, but that's not basic stuff, or that's not important stuff for us, I guess. But yeah, don't be afraid of the terminal. There's a lot of stuff you can do on terminal. You can update your sudo DNF update. You can update from here your distribution. You can do everything, but you can see there's one package that needs to be updated, but it didn't update it for some reason, whatever. Clear to clear the screen. But it's good to know at least the basic. Oh yeah, but bodygleg.org says pwd is print working directory. Thank you. So it's very, very good to know the basic commands, because they are actually used in Houdini as well. You can see even in the Python shell. Let me turn. You can see there is how was the thing? Change who dot change cd. Yeah, you can see in Linux there in Houdini. I don't know if I can make this bigger. I don't know. I don't think so. You can see who cd exists in Houdini, and it tells you change the current node. You can change to another node. Let's change to obj dot Roberto. You can see even the name says it's there, Roberto. And then if we press enter, we will be now here. Let's do that again because you didn't saw that. So if I do that, oh, this is not linking. Oh, this is I'm sorry, this is locked for me. Let's do it again. Oh, what the hell? Should be changing. I'm not sure what's happening, but whatever. You can change it there. If I list here, you can see. Oh, sorry. Who.ls, I guess. No, I can. Ls doesn't exist. No, you can list the children maybe. Nah, I need to do something else here for listing the children, but as you can see, even Houdini works in this. I just wanted to show you that even Houdini has this based on folders, and it's based on Unix, and all that stuff. It's in Houdini, so it will be beneficial for you to know all these little things in Houdini. All right, so I see there's a lot of chat. Let's see what I missed. Sorry, guys. Syntax do work in Linux. I've set up many syntax since the first one, the very first one. I set that up in Linux, and it works. Dolphin, it's amazing. Yes, syntax works. Syntax works. Like somebody said, all Linux is free. So if you want to download CentOS, just search for CentOS. There's the CentOS project page, and you can download it right here. It's not hard to get. It's really simple. You can burn it into a USB, and you can plug it into your computer, start from the USB, use it, use CentOS, use whatever application. There's a live version of CentOS, I think. There's this thing that called live repos. You can install it into a USB, start from the USB or or a disk. Nobody uses disk anymore, I think, DVDs. But you can start from it and use it and see how you like it. Sometimes even just using it like that, it will give you a nice idea how it's gonna work in your computer. But keep in mind that it's not the actual real install. Just so you know, Mac is based on FreeBSD, I think, not exactly on Linux, but they're similar stuff. Yes, they both come from Unix. All right. Fedora is cool if you're a programmer. Yes, most of the Linux distributions are really cool for programming. It's pretty amazing to program in Linux. It's way simpler. Let's see if there's any more questions before I move on. Can I use Maya with Fedora? Yes, Maya was first made for Linux, then it was made for Windows, and then for Mac. So yeah, Maya, it's used for a lot of people in Fedora and a bunch of other Linux distributions. Can I move my picture to see Houdini? Why? Oh, yeah, I was typing some commands there, but I'm not typing anymore, so just made a bunch of mess there, so it's not important. Max is only for Windows, and that's because Autodesk has some weird thingies here. There. Final Cut Pro is only for Mac. No teapot on Linux. What about this teapot? Oh, camera's off. Here's the teapot. Oh, so the way around. Yay! Okay, so hey Simon, sup? Yeah, Simon had a few issues with Fedora, but I don't know why. It's working really well for me, and I did reinstall again. And actually, was Simon and I was talking about. He was trying to use Fedora, but he had some issues. GNOME versus KDE. Well, it's a matter of user preference there. It's like GNOME is one way of handling your Windows and your desktop, and KDE is another. I prefer KDE because I think it's a little bit more customizable thingy. It's more like a fits into my kind of developer kind of way of thinking. And GNOME, I think it's a little bit more stiff. It's more for the normal users, I think. But it's up to you. It's up to you. Hackintosh. Alright, so what else I'm gonna tell you about Linux? So you can get Linux anywhere, and it's really simple to install. I'm gonna do a few videos. Let's say you can go to, let's say if you never tried Linux before, I will recommend you get Ubuntu. Ubuntu is pretty popular. I would use Ubuntu if it worked with my hardware, but there's something in my hardware that is not like in Ubuntu. Alright? I will use it if I could. I can't. My setup is just not good with Ubuntu. So if you go to Ubuntu and desktop, you can see you can download it here. It's free. Ubuntu looks pretty nice. It's out of the box. Everything works. If you never try Linux, try Ubuntu. Put it in a USB drive. It's pretty simple. You can say, let's download this thing. Download whatever these versions you want. Both, it's gonna work great. And then when you or you can even buy a USB stick with it if you want to, but once you download it, there's an installation guide here, and it's pretty simple. You can see the takes you through each step basically. So let's it tells you about Ubuntu, tells you the requirements, tells you how to burn how to boot from a DVD, how to boot from a USB drive, how to install it. The installation, it's pretty simple. I really recommend you install it in a drive in an empty drive or something that you are willing to delete. And I recommend you don't have any other drives connected, just the drive you're going to use, because it's gonna delete stuff. So be careful with what you delete, and I always recommend don't have anything else connected. Unplug everything, just leave the one that you're willing to lose. So yeah, the installation, it's pretty simple. You just select your keyboard, your user, your password, and it just installs, and it has a squirrel, and I like squirrels, and that's great. And then you install, you restart, and you have Ubuntu. It's pretty simple. If you have a USB 3 stick and an SSD drive, I guarantee in less than 20 minutes you have Ubuntu running. It's pretty fast. Again, I would have used Ubuntu. I don't like the standard version of Ubuntu. The one I like is Kubuntu because it's the KDE version of Ubuntu. Is the same thing, but with the other desktop. So this is the desktop that Kubuntu uses. I like this because again it works for me. and it works for me. That's the only reason it works for me. So yeah, Adrian, you can install it in whatever kind of drive you want. And Simon is using Ubuntu and he likes it, and it's great. If it works for you on your hardware, it's great. Use it. It's a great distribution. I don't like specifically the Unity version, which is the that one. This one I don't like. Actually, Simon uses the GNOME version, which is Ubuntu GNOME. Is this one? I guess that's what Simon is using. The one that has the Ubuntu, the GNOME desktop, which is it's the better option, I will say. Use that one instead of the default one, but it's up to you again. Just test both. Burn the damn thing into a USB drive, and it just try both. They're free. You just need to download it, put it in a USB, and see which one do you like the most, and then you just install it when you're ready. All right, let's see if there's any more questions. So the reason I'm doing all this Linux thing is because I've been talking about Linux. I talk about Linux, and again I was telling you, people ask me about Linux, but so I want to educate you a little bit in whatever I know of this subject in Linux. So that's why I'm doing this. Of course, I expect more questions, but it's cool. Dual boots are totally a thing. I have Windows and Linux in this machine. I actually triple boot because I have Fedora, I have CentOS, and I have Windows on this machine, so I can just start in whatever system I want. Let's see if there's any. Oh, it's starting to rain, I think. Cool. We need some rain. Is there a way parallels for Linux? I think you're asking if there's like a parallels application for Linux, and people are. So Michael, it's recommending Zen and Kemu, but I don't recommend that because actually Zen needs to be installed like underneath everything. It's more advanced stuff. So what I recommend you use for if you wanna install other applications or other systems inside of Linux is either use this thing that it's called VMware Workstation. VMware Workstation, you can install Windows inside of there. You can install Workstation on Linux and then install inside Windows, Mac, whatever. You can see there's a version for Linux. But this is not free. If you want a free option, there's damn it, I haven't used it in a while. VirtualBox is another one that is free, and you can install operating systems. Even if you are trying, let's say that you want to try Linux inside of Windows, install VirtualBox. There, it's gonna create like a virtual machine. You can install Linux inside there, and you can play with it and see if you like it or not. All right, let's see what else. Yeah, OpenSUSE. I don't know, man. I didn't like OpenSUSE. Hey, Orlando, what's up, man? Glad to see you here. No talking about Fusion today. Sorry, guys. Licensing? How does licensing work with dual triple boots? Well, licensing is just the same licensing. I don't. The operating system has their own licensing thing, I guess. I don't know what you're saying. If you're saying about applications, some applications work with the same license in Windows and Linux. Some don't. Like Redshift, my license for Redshift, I need to, if I'm on Linux and I want to use it on Windows, I need to deactivate it. That's the great thing about Redshift. You can just deactivate the license, boot into Windows, activate the license again, and even if you move to another machine, they call it portable license, which is amazing. But it's up to the application. Yeah, you can see Michael said VMware or VirtualBox is what you should be using again. Friday Toolful, yes, you can use Nuke on Linux. Nuke was developed on Linux. So yes, you can use Nuke on Linux, and you can use Fusion on Linux. Yes, Fusion, it's here actually. You can see here, there it is, Fusion running, there it is, running on Linux. This wasn't always available, but it is now. My interface is super big, but it works on Linux and it works pretty well. Let's see. How do you organize your file system? I don't know. Just folders? La, 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 la. Yes, Fusion does support depth compositing now, Michael. It's new in Fusion 9. Depth compositing, it's a thing on Fusion now. Ubuntu, and Fedora. I will, if you're new to Linux, just stick to some of the Ubuntu flavors. Body Geek. I don't know. Does the Windows? I only use Houdini on Linux. I don't find a reason to use it on Windows. But I don't think you can use it on both machines. I mean, in the same machine in Linux and Windows. It may be. I never tried. Alright, so yeah, guys, please ask me any questions about Linux. It's cool. You can even run, there's a thing called Wine in Linux that you can use to run some Windows applications. It won't run Photoshop, it won't run I don't know, ZBrush, although some people manage to get it working, but it's not really the way to do it. But there are some applications that run, even some games that run with Wine, which is basically Windows installation inside Linux. It's not the best, so if you want to use Linux applications that are really hard or really expensive to use, just use Windows. It's not doesn't or find an alternative version. Alright, well, Orlando's saying that it uses he's in the license in Linux and Windows. There we go. Okay. So, any other questions related to Linux? As you can see, well, I'm always streaming, recording videos, editing videos, everything, all that stuff. I do it in Windows. I do it in Linux. So Houdini works great on Linux. Everything works. There's no difference. The actual Houdini experience is exactly the same as in Windows or Mac. Mac, this bar is different, but it's basically the same thing. GPUs, RAM, that stuff it's better handled on Linux again. So I really encourage you guys to give it a try at least. Just like I said, you can download it, put it in a USB drive, and I can tell you how. Really simple. Just download the ISO image. Download this image if you are in Windows. It's called Rufus. Rufus just burns that into a USB. You put it in your computer, boot from that, select it in the boot menu or however you do it in your machine, and then run Linux from the USB and try it out. Just give it a try. Maybe you will like it. SLI, I don't use SLI. Yeah, sure. So note this is talking about SLI. SLI is not used by Redshift. I have my cars separated completely. My monitors are in my 7 than my 1070, and I use only the 1080 Ti to render. Oh, I don't know why Redshift's not here. Weird. Should be. I don't know why it's not here. But yeah, Redshift can use any cards you have in your system. They don't have to be the same card. Like Simon was here. You're still here, Simon? Simon has a system. He showed me the other day. He has a system with Titan cards and 1080 cards. And just if you have them available in your box, Redshift will use them. He doesn't care what kind of card it is, or if they are different cards. Redshift just says, all right, you want me to use this GPU? I will use it. It's up to you. For a small studio, recommend getting a server and virtualizing 5 to 6 workstation. Now, I think you need a workstation for each artist, because virtualizing stuff it's not gonna work the same way, especially if you are using heavy applications like Houdini. They require the whole thing. The whole thing for the hardware. The more hardware you can give it, it's the better. So virtualizing stuff, it's not gonna give you the same performance. So why are these freaking thing is attacking us today? Stupid messages. So yeah, just get a workstation for each guy. It's the best way to do it. What about Gentoo? What about it? It's just another distribution of Linux. It's different, but it's a little bit different because Gentoo requires you to set up everything from scratch. So yeah, it's the same thing, but it's a little bit more for, let's say, for somebody that really knows what he's going to do with the machine. Redshift uses all CPUs 100%. Yes, it does. It's so scary that it uses so much CPU, GPU, but yes, it does. Yeah, like Simon saying, he uses Octane and Redshift. They both use the GPUs correctly in Linux. There's no issues with that. Linux, it's a really great operating system, so I really encourage you guys to use it. It does gives you a lot of stability that Windows doesn't have. When I boot to Windows to do stuff, sometimes I just regret it. I want to get out of it quick, but I still have to use some Unreal Engine stuff there, and I just have to use it. But again, it's different. Alright guys, I think that's gonna be it for today. We talk a lot about Linux, which is cool. That's great, Simon. Rendering both Octane and Redshift on different cars at the same time. That's pretty rad, man. I did this once. I was in Houdini. I render one animation in CPU with Mantra, and at the same time I render another animation in GPU with Redshift. Both at the same time. I was just hoping my computer wouldn't explode. But yeah, I was doing CPU and GPU render both at the same time. It was really cool. Nothing happened. It was great. It was really cool. G40 core in BIOS, right? Yeah, that's not a Linux thing. It's just a BIOS thingy. Alright, guys. Well, I think there's a question. 2 or 3 core AMD Epic, and a lot of RAM. I think well, go ahead and if you want to virtualize machines, test it out. I've never tried. I virtualize some systems, but they're never like this 100% today. So test it out, man. If you want to virtualize your machines, maybe set one workstation and set another virtualized machine, and then test it out and see which gives the best performance. Because if I tell you something and it's not true, well, the truth is if you test the machine versus the virtual machine and see what works better for you. No worries, Orlando. As soon as we are done, the video will be there available, and please watch it. Yeah, the shot was great, guys. I really appreciate you guys being here and interacting. And this is exactly what I want to do in this Friday. Not Friday. I don't even know what day it is. This Wednesdays, I want you guys to talk with me, ask me questions, interact here. That's why I'm here live. If I didn't want to interact with you guys, I'd just record a video and upload it. But that's not the idea. I want to interact with you guys and have questions and disagreements. I don't know everything. You guys have taught me things and all that stuff. So it's great to have a chat and talk about these things and all that stuff. Cool. All right. Yeah. Simon says he has render before with Arnold and Octane at the same time too. So it's pretty cool. I've never done that before, but because I wasn't into GPU rendering until I got into Redshift, but now I freaking love it. Redshift, it's really cool. All right, guys. Thank you. Thanks a lot for being here. I really appreciate it again, and please keep the chat active, and I really appreciate your questions, and I try to respond as much as I can. I'm gonna prepare those Fedora videos for you guys to follow up, because I've seen that some people are having issues. I didn't have any issues with Fedora, but again, everyone's situation is different. Your hardware might be different. So it all depends all the time. All right, but I'm gonna do it, and hopefully it helps someone out there that is trying to get into all these things. All right. All right, guys. Really, thank you guys for being here. Recommendations: a PC for 3D, something that has a lot of big processor and a lot of RAM, and a good graphics card. That's what you need for 3D. Good big processor, tons of RAM, and a good graphics card. That's what you should be looking into a computer. All right, guys. Okay, well, alright guys, I'll see you next week then. Alright, thanks again for being here, and let's keep learning together. Alright, cheers. Woo, that was awesome. Now let's find that button that stops the stream.